This is the Think Again podcast. I'm Scott Jens, your host. Today's episode is titled, Create a Clear Definition of Your Contact Lens Specialty Practice. Our guest is Dede Reyes, Manager of Consultation and Education for Specialty Vision Products at ABB Optical Group and Fellow of the Contact Lens Society. Dede, welcome to the Think Again podcast.
Thanks, Scott, for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. And I know you're a podcaster yourself. So everyone check out some of the content Dede's created. Let's start with defining specialty contact lenses. Is it any lens that doesn't come in a six-pack box nowadays?
Yes and no. So there are some things about specialty lenses that are important. So specialty lenses can be GP lenses, they can be scleral lenses, they can be soft custom lenses, they can be prosthetic lenses, they can be any lens that's not really inside the box. However, anything that's outside of norm, you're talking about high myopes, high hyperopes. Some of them come in the box, but they're hard to get. Those are still specialty lenses, and also multifocals and things like that. Those are still considered specialty lenses as well.
Oh, so even a multifocal in today's day, is a standard toric kind of considered a specialty lens or not?
It can be if they fall inside standard parameters, but there's a lot of patients out there that have high amounts of astigmatism, a diopter and a half, diopter and 3/4. They just really need to be able to define that into 1 millimeter or one piece at a time. And sometimes those patients they're off axis. There's some other things. Those are really, really important to be able to get customized lenses. And anything that can be customized is a specialty lens.
Okay, that's a fair definition. Now, to the audience that's listening, I know that a lot of you have your own point of view about what your specialty practice might be. But listen, Dede has a career that's traversed 30 years of specialty lens fitting work between UCal Davis Medical Center and over a decade of work for Synergize. So we're going to let her guide us in her expertise today. And so I know, Dede, that you have a lot of conversations with doctors, and I'm wondering what the most common thing is that a doctor should understand about what instrumentation might be beneficial to a specialty lens practice.
Well, and what's interesting is a doctor can be a specialty lens fitter without a lot of extra instrumentation.
Okay.
If you've got a slit lamp and knowledge of fluorescein patterns, you can fit specialty lenses. If you've got a slit lamp and the ability to understand rotation on a soft custom lens, you can be a specialty fitter. But one of the things you have to learn to do in the beginning when you're learning this process is to really focus and utilize your consultation people. For whatever company that you're working with or working for, now I'm special to ABB, but any company that you're working for, your consultants know the lens designs. And by knowing those lens designs, they can then work from that lens design and move forward. So it's great to have OCTs. It's great to have topography. It's great to have all of those other pieces of instrumentation, but it's not an absolute necessity. We talk a lot about what's a good to have and what's a must. The only thing that's a must is a slit lamp and knowledge. And if you're fitting scleral lenses, it's a diagnostic set. But the other pieces, the OCTs, the scleral topographers, all those things are great pieces to have, but they're not a must.
So a couple questions. Do you recommend that doctors that are doing a lot of lens reviews with fluorescein use a Ratten filter to get the best view?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you have a fluorescein and a Ratten filters are great. One of the things that we do is we provide Ratten filters and blue pen lights. So we can teach the staff to look, if you're talking about scleral lenses, bubbles and touch. Do I see a bubble? Do I see touch? And then get that back to the doctor to make decisions about changing the scleral lens parameters. So those little pieces are huge. And for me, Ratten filters are a must when it comes to reading fluorescein patterns because it really does excite the fluorescein, regardless of the amount of fluorescein you get in the eye.
Yeah, that's great advice. And then the other thing I thought of is I think that a lot of people feel like they need the topographer. They need to provide a consultant with tons of topographical data. But you're telling us that you can, but you don't have to. And that I want to make sure I understand that.
K's and refraction You can design lenses from K's and refraction. The more information a consultant has, the better they can help you design the periphery of the lens. You know, K readings give you the central 3 millimeters.
Right.
Topography gives you about 8, 9, 10 millimeters. And getting out past that 8, 9, 10, where most of the lenses land, a lot of time is guesswork. But if we get diagnostic lenses on the eye, we can look at that. And one of the things that we really do a lot of is take K readings, refraction, topography, if you have it, and design a lens from that just to get something on the eye. And once we can get that lens on the eye, then we really know what's going on out in that periphery.
Yeah. All right, great advice. So tell me about how you define specialty lenses that are for therapeutic purposes, right? Does a doctor need to have an entire unique system and process for fitting lenses for keratoconus or pellucid or some of those things as you are working as a consultant for them?
Again, diagnostic lenses are great because if you can read a fluorescein pattern, you can really get what you need from that. But if you've got at least some information from your consultant to let them build a diagnostic lens, if you will. Diagnostic sets are fantastic. I think having diagnostic sets and knowing how to use them is great. But there are a lot of practices, especially those that are just starting out, that don't want to spend a lot of money and time in a diagnostic lens, but they can get to know their consultant and know what kind of information to give the consultant. The consultant can send you your first diagnostic lens just from reading that information. If we know it's a pellucid patient, or if we know it's a keratoconus patient, or if we know it's a graft patient, at least we get a little bit of information, or post-refractive. At least we get a little bit of information and we can start somewhere. But getting a lens on an eye is the best way to really get good fitting information.
So this just spawned a new question for me, and I'm sure this is very important to you at your company. There are too many doctors that have not invested in trial sets that use the fitting process as the trial process. And I know you sort of walk people through that, but there's real expense to the providers of the lenses, the suppliers of the lenses, to doing, diagnostic fit with first lens manufactured to second lens manufactured. Is that a problem for the contact lens suppliers? And how do you deal with it?
Diagnostic lenses give us the best and first fit success. So if we put a diagnostic lens on the eye, we have a much better chance of getting that first lens the first time. If you're talking about just taking topography and theory and using your information and building a diagnostic lens, you get close, but you don't always get the right lens. Sometimes you have to add more over refraction. You have to make adjustments. There are things you have to do to that lens. But a diagnostic set is a great way to get over that hump when you're talking about RGPs and even scleral lenses. Because even with scleral lenses, and we see a lot of scleral lenses done today, even with scleral topography, and you kind of know exactly what's going on, or at least you think you do, out in the periphery, having that lens on eye, knowing what the elevation is, knowing what the refraction and over refractions are, really get us much closer to that first lens.
It's great advice. Again, I think that too many docs sort of throw a consultant some data, minimal data, and wait for that first manufactured lens to come in, and it just costs everyone time and money. So,
right.
You also have seen some really unique opportunities with like custom colors for traumatic brain injury patients and other purposes. Can a primary care optometrist sort of get involved in specialty contact lens care with some of those inroads with patients? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. There are a number of different lenses on the market that you can utilize for traumatic brain injury and migraines and all kinds of neurological issues. We're fortunate. There's a company that's put out now. There's a sports vision lens that's out on the market. Great lens, great, and they're doing more and more studies on utilizing these gray greens and ambers for traumatic brain injury. And the beautiful thing is they're daily disposable, and it really does help these patients get rid of the glare and things that they have from both migraines and traumatic brain injury. It's a great little product. It's called the Altius product.
Great. I mean, this is a place where if you're listening and you're not a specialty provider, you can start building a specialty contact lens practice around those patients. I mean, when I was in practice, I inherited a practice that had hundreds of RGP patients, and most of them back in the early 90s were coming off of, hard PMMA lenses.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen fewer RGP fits in the last 10 years than had been before. Is that due to an uptick in sclerals and so much success with sclerals?
Well, I think sclerals have had a piece of that. I really do. I think because there's a lot of information going on in the schools. The schools teach scleral lenses because there's a lot of profitability in scleral lenses. There's a lot of other things that go along with scleral lenses. But scleral lenses are not for everybody. And we've seen in the schools a downtick in education on gas perms and an uptick in sclerals. So as you see that from process to process, from start to finish, you're always going to see, if they're not teaching it, you're going to see a downtick. And that's really what we've seen. We've seen an uptick in sclerals because sclerals are not easy and RGPs are hard. RGPs are uncomfortable and I don't want to put them in my eye, but sclerals are. So you see a little bit of that kind of personality that comes out with these lenses. And scleral lenses are fantastic. They're a great product for a number of patients, but don't rule out GP lenses because GP lenses really do have their place. And it's just a little bit of adaptation to reading fluorescein patterns to make it work.
Good advice again. I come to think about how you interact with a contact lens specialty doctor. You've got a specialty practice. I think sometimes you make the decisions on your own. Walk us through what it's like to work with someone like you and have that teamwork create an improved patient experience. I'm genuinely interested on how your day goes with these doctors who are working with you.
Well, and I have a real special place in my heart for education. So working with practitioners and helping them build their business is all a piece of it. And building your business means you have to learn the products that you're working with. So one of the things that we do, my team and I do, is we really work with a practitioner to educate them on different designs. Not one design works for every patient. So you have to be able to work with different designs and understand the different placement of these designs to make them work, whether it's a gas perm, whether it's a scleral, whether it's whatever design that you're working with, you really have to understand how that works on the eye. And for me, with my passion and education, it's like, I just want to teach people. Let me teach you how to be successful. Let me teach you how to work this product. And by utilizing this product, growing to that. And by getting that understanding, and there's a number of organizations out there that will help with that as well. Again, I'm a fellow to the Contact Lens Society of America. I'm also the sitting president for the CLSA. And the CLSA has a great educational program that we put together to teach fitting and to teach the idiosyncrasies of building a business and how to grow whatever you're working with when it comes to specialty contact lenses.
I appreciate that. I mean, between the groups like CLSA and also your work at ABB Optical Group and the others that are like you in the industry, I just think sometimes we think when we're a specialist, we're above the help. And I really appreciate you encouraging us, if we're going to build a contact lens specialty practice, to seek the help.
Well, there's GPLI, there's the Scleral Lens Society. There's just a number of organizations that you should reach out to if you have questions. And the thing I love about the contact lens industry is we're all willing to help.
Yeah.
Whether it's from your consultants to your doctors, they're all willing to help everybody. And that's the piece to help to be so important when you're growing that specialty practice. Don't be afraid to reach out, whether it's to your consultant, whether it's to your colleagues, whether it's to educational organizations. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Okay, so we're going to close this session with probably one of the more important topics, and that is thinking about fees, right? A doctor defines their specialty practice. They want to get involved in doing these fittings. There's work involved in design and patient education and training and ongoing care. And then not only do they have to have a good fee schedule, they have to communicate them well. What kind of advice would you have for the audience so they do their fee setting correctly and well?
So there are a number of different organizations, again, that will help with that. The GPLI has a calculator that really helps you figure out fees, and you need to understand what your chair time is worth. You also need to understand what your staff's time is worth. And you need to spend time and spend money in your staff, training them and getting them educated, getting them to understand. And don't be afraid to charge. Insurance companies are out there. There's all kinds of billing pieces that can help you understand how to bill insurances and what to bill and how to do that. So there's a number of organizations that can help with that as well. So again, don't be afraid to reach out, but also put your time and effort into your staff, because your staff can talk the talk and walk the walk. And then they leave all of the fitting and all of that to you as a practitioner, but then you get to reap the benefits of your staff members.
We don't think anything about taking our teenagers to the orthodontist and getting charged for all that care the doctor and the staff gives. And yet we often give the kind of services that are so important in a specialty practice away for much less than it's worth.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that advice. Dede Reyes from ABB Optical Group, thank you again for sharing your expertise on today's Think Again podcast.
Thank you, Scott.
And that's it for today's Think Again podcast, brought to you by GPN Visions, a peer-to-peer learning community to help grow your eye care business.